Happy Thursday, and thank you for watching another live edition of the East West Football Podcast. I am Fidel Barraza, alongside with me, like always, Jerry Martinez, Kendall Willie. What's going on, guys?
Man, already stressing out, man, because we're 74 days from football, and it's crazy, right? Because every time we start talking about football, we're like, you know what? Let's write this down and let's just create a show off for this, right? And I mean, today we're going to be talking about, you know, we're going to be going and be talking about these potential teams, and we're already getting stressed out just thinking about it.
Hey, I'm excited, man. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm excited, man. It's a dead time in football right now, but hey, I'm just ready to talk some ball. We're gonna talk about some of these teams that's gonna bounce back. A couple of teams gonna step back this year.
Yeah, and before we get into it, I do want to bring something else up. So today it was official that USC and UCLA will be joining the Big Ten Conference starting 2024, which is pretty big news.
It is huge news, man. I mean, that entire landscape now made Big Ten up there kind of like more. I mean, it just made it a little bit more interesting. It looks like Big Ten is trying to stay in competition with the SEC, man.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be interesting, man, because there's been that chatter out there that the Pac-12, the those teams out there, the players are not, you know, they're kind of soft, man. So it's gonna answer some questions real quick when you're going against Ohio States and Penn States, and man, it's a different day, man. It's a different day in football.
Yeah, man, it's just wild stuff. And I mean, a huge loss for the Pac 12, which is probably going to be now the Pac 10 again. But definitely, I mean, I think USC's on the verge of being a powerhouse again, especially with the new head coach Lincoln Riley. The recruitment's been pretty good this offseason. UCLA, I was shocked with UCLA too. I mean, them moving over there as well.
Man, I'll tell you this. Nobody does football better than Texas, man.
Well, I know some people that might have a different opinion on that, but let's go and talk about these teams
Yeah,
that
yeah.
we think are going to have a bounce back season, and maybe some teams that are going to regress this upcoming season as well. Let's start off with the teams that are going to have a stronger season, we think, this season.
Ooh, I'm gonna start with the New Orleans Saints. They had a pretty good offseason, a pretty good draft. Bring in Jarvis Landry, Tyron Matthew. They got some injured players coming back. Like I said, had a pretty good draft class as well. I think the Saints, Jameis Winston of all the quarterback, the most important position on the football team, he's coming back. I think the Saints are gonna be they're gonna be a tough out this year. They're gonna be good. I can see them having like a top five record in the NFL. I really can see that, and I think Tampa's gonna have something to mess with this year in that division. It's not going to be a runaway like it's been the past couple of years. I think the Saints really going to be dominant this year.
I'm gonna go with the Broncos, man. I think that the Broncos they had been constructing this defense to stop the Chiefs, man, and along the way they started adding like these nice weapons on offense, and the last couple of seasons we've seen that Drew Lock was not the answer, and you know what they did? They went out there and they got Russell Wilson, who's still playing at a very high level, and so yeah, I think that this team right now is I mean, some people, I mean, I'm pretty sure people, Bronco fans feel that they now own the West there in AFC. And you, Fidel, I mean, you of all people should know how tough the Broncos defense has been. So I think that with this addition, I think now we're gonna have to take the Bengals serious.
Maybe, hey,
Well,
maybe we'll finally get to see a Jerry Judy sighting.
maybe, but the Raiders did sweep the Broncos last season, so I'm not too worried about the Broncos defense, but they definitely did upgrade on offense with Russell Wilson at quarterback. The team that I'm looking at though is the Baltimore Ravens. Last year, we all know they dealt with injuries from start to finish. So, an offseason, healthy with the additions they made via free agency and the draft, I think Baltimore is going to be the team to beat in the AFC North.
Hey man, I can't agree with you anymore. I have a list right here of teams that I kind of want to that I think that I mean there's several teams that can make this push, right? I think that we could see improvements from a lot of teams, even teams that weren't in the playoffs. But I think you're absolutely right. Everything is going to ride on Lamar's shoulders, though. So they have a really good situation.
And shout out State of the Saints podcast. Appreciate it.
Hey, Kendall shouted out the Saints, man. So yeah, man, shout out Kendall.
Hey,
Hey,
and well, let's talk about the Saints. So obviously, they were in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes per se. They ended up re-signing back Jameis Winston. We know how his season ended last year with that torn ACL. He was having a really good season until that injury happened. Obviously, Sean Payton's not there anymore, but in comes in Dennis Allen. He's got some head coaching experience with the formerly known Oakland Raiders. That defense is still intact. And they upgraded, as far as the wide receiver position goes, they drafted Chris Olave, Jarvis Landry's there now, and hopefully Michael Thomas is going to be able to play this season.
that's the key right there, Michael Thomas. If he can come back healthy, I mean, we haven't really seen him in the past couple years. If he can come back healthy, the Saints will be in pretty good shape. I think Dennis Allen, I'm not gonna say he's an upgrade over Sean Payton, but he's been there with the Saints. He's been with the Saints for a few years, so he kind of knows what to do. I think the Saints will be just fine with Dennis.
Man, Chris Olave is gonna be a superstar, man. I mean, wait till you see what he does in that. I mean, it's still Sean Payton's system, right? So,
Yeah.
wow, I don't even think that they need to worry about Michael Thomas. They have they have a lot of things. And I'll say this: Jameson Winston. We need Jameson Winston in the NFL, man. He makes NFL fun, man. I like it. I like it when he'll chuck it up there, and having that kind of player in Chris Olave. Wow, man! I think that Saints offense can be powerful with that rookie.
Yeah, and Chris Olave was actually my favorite receiver, in this past NFL draft as well. Let's go and talk about another team that's interesting, the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, Brian Flores isn't there anymore. They had a lot of turnover this offseason, and they made that big trade to get Tyreek Hill from the Kansas City Chiefs. And obviously, Mike McDaniel's a new head coach there. What do you guys think about the Dolphins?
I was actually debating also the Dolphins being that because I mean when you said that, I mean you got Tua coming kind of what we're trying to figure out what if Tua is a franchise quarterback that they find their franchise quarterback, then they added Tyreek Hill to go on top of Jalen Waddle. Now you got speed for days. You said like the new coach brings in, and man, he quickly assembled that offense to run the ball. And I mean that just shows that they know that they're banking on their defense to hold up and make some noise there in the AFC East, man. Because when we look at it, if you take the ball out of Tua's hands, less mistakes happen. If a running game going, all you need is somebody that can manage the game, and that's a success for a playoff team.
It's all on Tua now. They've done everything they can to put him in the best position to succeed. I mean, he has all the weapons, all the speed, everything, and the defense. It's all on Tua.
Yeah, and then obviously, if this doesn't work out this year for Tua Tagovailoa, I think he won't be the starting with the Miami Dolphins next season.
Man, it's it's kind of tough and kind of sad, you know.
But I mean, look, he's been put in a really great position this offseason with all the acquisitions they've made, on the offensive side of the football, and then bringing in Mike McDaniel, coming from that 49ers system, which is very run heavy. I think that's definitely going to help out Tua.
I mean, I think you're absolutely right, man. And he's such a character too, so it's gonna be interesting. I wonder if he's gonna be the next coach Bill Belichick, right? With his funny remarks after after a post game.
Yeah. The other team I think we have to watch out for is the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota Vikings are a very talented football team. Now they have an offensive minded coach. Mike Zimmer's no longer there. He was there for a very long time. Look, to me, they have all the talent in the world on the offensive side of the football. My question is on the defensive side, but I think Minnesota's going to have a really good year.
Man, I kind of agree with you on this one. I mean, I like Justin Jefferson. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I like Adam Thielen. I like Dalvin Cook. Uh, but it's kind of hard to transition from. There's going to be some flops between coach and head coach. We've seen it happen time and time again. So, I mean, hopefully it's an easy transition for them. And if it is, well, I mean, we already know how far that team can get. So I don't know. I'm not really sold on the Vikings yet.
If you're the Vikings, you got to ask yourself, if not now, when? Because I mean, the Packers, no Devontae Adams. They had a bunch of losses offseason. Detroit, they're still rebuilding. Chicago, young quarterback. Vikings, I think they're clearly the most talented team in the division. So if not now, when?
Yeah, And I think Kevin O'Connell is definitely going to help out that offense. So we'll see. I just think Minnesota's got too much talent on the offensive side of the football. My question is on the defensive side.
Yeah, that's exactly they're right now what's holding them back.
Yeah, let's go and talk about some teams that maybe are going to have digress this next season coming up. The team that comes to mind is the San Francisco 49ers. That's the first team that comes to mind. Obviously, they got a quarterback situation where they're going to probably start Trey Lance. Obviously, we've heard the rumors. Trey Lance is supposedly going to be the starting quarterback week 1, but they do have Jimmy Garoppolo still on the roster. I feel like they would have traded him, but he had that the shoulder injury that was lingering, I guess, pretty much for a lot part of the season. So he hasn't, he had surgery and he hasn't been able to throw, but they say he will be ready for training camp. But you have this young quarterback, and I don't know. It's a weird situation because the Niners were planning to move Jimmy Garoppolo.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I don't know why I was thinking in my head, man. Watch Jimmy G become an Eagle this year. I don't know why, right? Just I guess it's just their GM, right? Howie Roseman, how he
Yeah.
likes to invest in quarterbacks, and what happens if Jalen Hurts just doesn't cut it in the between the season? Do you think they would, you think they're a team that would step up and maybe take Jimmy G for a rental year?
Well, here's the thing, Jerry. So, look, obviously we know injuries are going to happen. Quarterbacks are going to go down. So, if they're in a situation where they can get something back for Jimmy than what they thought they could, then you make the trade. But if not, look, what happens if Trey Lance is struggling the first 2 to 3 weeks of the season? Are you going to pull him and hurt his confidence and go back to Jimmy Garoppolo? Or are you going to, ride or, sink or swim with Trey Lance?
Man, I don't know. I think if you really want to see Trey Lance succeed, you get rid of Jimmy G because, I think you don't, especially for a young quarterback that you invested 3 first-round picks, you don't want that over the back of your shoulder. Like, man, if I don't do good, I'm out. That's a bad remedy. And we've seen that Coach Shanahan has made quarterbacks backup quarterbacks with Nick Mullins, man. You know what I mean? So I just think that Jimmy G is not going to be a 49er very long.
I'm just surprised we haven't heard more on that situation yet. On the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo is still there, so that's very surprising to me.
Yeah, I just didn't think that they thought that injury that he had with the shoulder was that bad. Because last offseason, the Indianapolis Colts did try to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. That we do know. But obviously, we know what happened now. The Deshaun Watson situation. Matt Ryan's feelings are hurt. Let's just say it. It's just the way it was. And he asked for a trade. It just happened to be the perfect storm for the Indianapolis Colts. They get another aging quarterback in Matt Ryan. So we'll see how that turns out.
Man, with mine, I'm gonna say something real quick. So the Bengals, like we were talking pregame, man, they have a tough season ahead of them. I will say this, man, they put together an offensive line. They were able to put together an offensive line this offseason. So they went out there and they addressed what they needed, right, or what they need to help get Joe Burrow to that level, right, But the thing is that we have yet to see, as of late, anybody make it over the Super Bowl hangover, is what they call it. So, man, can the Bengals get to? That's a good question, but no, I'm gonna go ahead and write it with the. Oh man, you said 49ers. Man, there's the Titans. What about the Packers? Is it, if it's just the defense and Aaron Rodgers, is that enough?
Dude, that's gonna be interesting. But real quick, I'm gonna correct you real quick. There's a team behind me that made it over the Super Bowl hangover a few years ago. They lost to the Philadelphia Eagles. Came back next year and won the Super Bowl. So it can happen. But it's rare. It's rare.
It's rare.
But they don't have Tom Brady as a quarterback, so.
It doesn't matter about that.
Man, Joe Burrow.
He said a team. He said team.
Joe Burrow does have that Tom Brady-ish effect to his Adam.
If you don't have one of these, then it's not. I get the swagger and all that, but until he's got a ring, it's still Joe Burrow, and Tom is Tom. But with that being said, look, the Bengals had tremendous success last year. A lot of people didn't see that coming. Now Jamar Chase had a tremendous rookie year. Now NFL teams have had a full offseason to view his tape and see his tendencies. So I think to me, defenses are going to be able to adjust him, a little bit better.
You're absolutely right, man. But it's kind of hard when you still have all those playmakers, man, especially at that wide receiver, right?
And now, well, I mean, that division too. I mean, well, Baltimore's going to be better. I mean, Cleveland. I mean, everything's still up in the air, right? So hopefully, we'll find out something next week.
Well, we should find out by Tuesday, so because it's over with.
Yeah.
And I also saw and read that it's heating up for Baker to be a part
Seattle-
of the Seahawks.
Seahawk, yeah.
So-
And we talked about that leak, right? We talked about it a couple of days ago that the NFL Pro Shop for the Seahawks released a jersey, and it was online, it was available, and then they took it down. So I perceive that happening here pretty soon, if not maybe tomorrow. But also, too, the other thing is, too, I don't know what to make of Pittsburgh. I like Mike Tomlin. He's a really good head coach. They had some injuries last year. They don't have Ben Roethlisberger, which I felt was holding them back last year as far as an offensive standpoint. Now you got Mitchell Trubisky, which he's supposedly going to start, but they drafted Kenny Pickett as well. So Pittsburgh's one of those teams that might surprise a lot of people this year, but I'm not too sure what to make of it.
I actually think the Steelers going to be pretty good this year. I think they will surprise a lot of people, just like you just said, Fidel. I think Trubisky will start the season, but then Kenny Pickett, by Thanksgiving, Pickett will be starting.
Man,
we got to get Mitch a fair shot, man. I really feel like he got a bad deal in Chicago. It wasn't all his fault.
Man, it's a tough situation, man. It's gonna be definitely an interesting storyline. I don't foresee the Steelers making that kind of an impact with that kind of strong of a division right now, because Bengals, Ravens, and Browns. I mean, the Browns still have a pretty great. I say great, but their defense is sharp, man. Got some good. They got playmakers all over the place.
Yes, they do. The team I'm gonna go with the Tennessee Titans. They lost a lot this offseason. Traded AJ Brown. Julio Jones is going, even though he didn't do much last year. They gotta get Derrick Henry some help. I mean, you just can't have that big back there and a good offensive line. You got to get them some weapons on the outside. They did bring in Robert Woods from the Rams. I don't think they have enough. And then they drafted Treylon Burks, but he hasn't been able to stay on the field in minicamp. So that's the team I'm watching during training camp. Man, I think they're going to take a huge step back last year. And they was number one. They was number one seed last year.
And Treylon Burks has had some conditioning issues too in the offseason program, from what I've been seeing and reading. So, I mean, yeah, look, they lost AJ Brown. They traded him basically because they didn't want to pay him, and the Eagles said, "Hey, we'll pay him, no problem, send him over." And they drafted Treylon Burks out of Arkansas. So, I mean, we'll see how that pans out for him.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, man, that a rookie wide receiver has to be thrown into that kind of system. I mean, so much can be said about AJ Brown, right? And he's the next AJ Brown. Those are pretty big shoes. So yeah, I mean, I can foresee it, especially with how Ryan Tannehill played towards the back end of the season too.
Let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts. So this football team was one of the hottest football teams in the second half in the NFL, and the last 2 to 3 games they kind of just fell off. That being some because of the defense, Carson Wentz, and some crazy things happen, right? So now, again, like we talked about it earlier, they traded for Matt Ryan, an aging quarterback, which, I mean, in recent history, the last couple of years, that's all they had in Indianapolis, aging quarterbacks. So what do we make about the Colts? Or do we see them as potentially making the playoffs next season, winning the division? Like, what do you guys think?
I can definitely see them making the playoffs, but I mean, is Matt Ryan at this age, is he that much better than Carson Wentz? I mean,
but Kendall, here's the thing. So what's the best friend of an aging quarterback? A really good running game, and that's what the Indianapolis Colts have.
And they had a pretty good draft as well.
Yeah, and like you said, but he has the offensive line, and he has the running game. So all you need is him not to make those mistakes. Because last season there were some Colts games that I caught, and man, I don't know what the heck Wentz was thinking in his head. It's just threw it up there like. There was no reason to do it, and he would do it, and I would think to myself, man, I guess this is how it is when I make a mistake, or when I take a risk. Sometimes in my day-to-day, life. So it was a weird thing, but Matt Ryan will bring you structure, and he's been to the Super Bowl, so he knows how to lead a team. So. Who knows, man? I think the Colts for sure. I can see them winning the division and being in the playoffs. But man, I don't know. It's gonna For them to actually win a game in the playoffs, that's another question.
What about the Seattle Seahawks if they do get Baker Mayfield? What do you guys think of that team?
Oof, if they do get him, I think it makes them more interesting.
And think about it this way, because Baker's going to have a chip on his shoulder. Because more than likely, they're not going to resign him to a long-term contract. So essentially, he's going to be playing on a one-year deal, going into free agency next offseason. And now, look, they drafted Kenneth Walker III. I thought he was the best running back in the draft in my eyes. You got DK Metcalf. You got Tyler Lockett. I mean, they do have some pieces, but, I mean, what do we make of Seattle?
Like I said, it definitely makes them more interesting. They got some pieces there, like you said, Fidel. That defense is young, but they're not. They still got Jamal Adams back there. They need a little more back there, but it makes them interesting. Baker's gonna be playing with a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see Seattle play, but I don't think they're gonna make that much noise. Honestly, I mean that defense is relatively like they just rebuilt it. I mean they lost Bobby Wagner. He's now with the Rams, so I mean, it's going to be interesting to see Baker there because Baker can do some things, but
Yeah.
you need that defense to help you out or help the offense out.
All right, and that's going to go ahead and do it for this live stream. Thank you, everyone out there, for watching. Happy 4th of July. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Have a good weekend. Peace.